I'm here with Sam McCoy today to talk about her exhibition that's currently on display at Venvi Art Gallery called Subtropical Living in a Sinking State. And in this exhibition, there are over 30 of her original paintings on display. And your sole exhibition, Subtropical Living in a Sinking State, is currently on display at Venvi Art Gallery until August 18th. Would you mind telling us more about the title and why you chose it?
Yes. It's truly an honor to be here with you all. So thank you so much, Rachel. And putting this collection together, it's works from the past few years. And so choosing a title was really something that I've been thinking about for a while. I like to be very concise and succinct with how I title my work. I'm not very poetic. So I name things often in bodies of series, like roadside, Florida roadside one, local bird one. But the title of the show kind of comes from works of literature that talk about contemporary life in Florida. I've talked with a few folks from Florida that are environmental refugees, living in Key West, Miami, and they're moving to northern parts of the state or even in Georgia. And are also really love the landscape there. And a lot of my work, I'm kind of, sometimes I'm in the swamps or next to a tide, and there's a lot of reference to nature and the environment. So it does feel like there's a little bit of impending doom, being in a literal state that as the climate warms up, we get a little closer to, the ocean. And so there's a little bit of impending doom, but still a lot of that sweet, saccharine Florida kind of stereotypical sunset landscape that you see in my work. So that's a little bit of the darkness of the work.
Yeah. And what is the overall theme what is the overall theme for and message your exhibition Subtropical is trying to convey?
Yeah, I really do dive into I guess ecology, but also there's this concept that I'm also like each body of work is a little bit different in method and meaning. But overall, I'm always thinking about this idea of enchantment of a landscape, disenchantment of a landscape, and reenchantment of a landscape. So, it's something that I actually learned from an art history class I took with Dr. Weingarten at FSU. It was kind of those same themes in the context of the turn of the century in France. So thinking about science and art and mass production of items and the economy and theater, but that all applies to landscapes. A lot of what we have is this kind of love and protection and preservation of landscapes, and this desire to hold on to the real Florida and what we have, and to take care of things. But that came from a fear of losing it, and so that kind of like disenchantment. We're living in a swampland, so we must, pave paradise and put up a parking lot to make it more beautiful. So that's a little bit of that disenchantment. So holding on to these different ideas, the different ebbs and flows, that it kind of just depends on the climate of the population at the time of what how people feel about the environment. But that's kind of the theme is look how beautiful it is, but also look what we've done to it, and also how can we kind of preserve and look at these beautiful places and spaces. Is it color? Is it figure? Is it form? So those are the themes that I think about as I go through each painting.
And could you describe the creative process and inspiration behind most of your works?
Yes. So it's kind of like two parts. I love kind of those 1940s linen postcards that have these really picturesque, beautiful landscapes on them. Visit Florida. I'm really interested and enchanted by the idea of the vision of Florida, the branding of Florida, kind of since a little bit before World War I, when we started kind of leisure lifestyle, and there's this exotic place of Florida, and just the different narratives throughout the past, 100, 200 years are a huge inspiration in how we like we as culture, as you know, kind of tourism and industry people, how we showcase Florida. Right now, we're kind of in the era of Florida Man, and how crazy is Florida? So that's a huge inspiration. Looking at old postcards, looking at old citrus packing labels, old brochures, billboards, and even contemporary references as well, like things I see on the side of the road today. But then I'm also inspired by going out into these places and painting from life. So I have a lot of plein air works where I do take my easel out. You'll find bugs in some of those because they kind of, you know, dot the painting as I work. And a lot of the places that I scout out to go are places that are very familiar with the people that come to see this exhibition, like St. Mark's. I even hit a few places in South Georgia, like Birdsong Nature Sanctuary. I'll hit FSU campus. A lot of these places have one thing in common, and that's a curated aspect too. So these are curated gardens, whether or not they're really focusing on natural ecology. They are places that we are meant to go and stand and look at and enjoy. So it's still that kind of like pretty curated garden, working with ecology and nature, but really giving us a forced perception of what Florida looks like.
How long have you painted on plein air?
I feel like it's not that long. My partner and I have kind of gone out. I think we really started during COVID. We did it a little bit here and there. But my partner Rivera and I really honed in on just doing plein air works about when the pandemic started. We were bubble buddies, and it was a safe way for us to kind of go out there and continue to do work. Maybe it was in public space that we could be safely distanced. So the majority of the plein air work started in 2020, but I think we really got into the height of it 2023 and this year as well.
Yeah, I can definitely see a lot of the plein air in your exhibition, like especially the plein air FSU Fab and plein air Lake Ella. Like those are very familiar sites for me as well because I am also from Tallahassee, and I'm an FSU alumni as well. So seeing pieces like FSU Fab like is really amazing because it's also really neat at the same time because oh, I've been to the FSU Fab. I've seen this in person. It's really cool seeing like paintings and depictions of that as well.
Yes, and I love to hear that. One of my favorite things is people telling me stories of spaces that they recognize. I feel like I'm still new to the area. So you know, these places are home to you and other Tallahassee locals and natives. And you know, some of like just that little brick building that I have, the FSU plein air one. It's got some graffiti on it. The graffiti's been kind of knocked off, but it was there for 3 years. So, you know, it definitely captures a moment in time. And I'm sure, you know, being a Tallahassee native, you see so much change happen just in a few years. And it's fun to capture that. Yeah.
And how do you decide what scenes to paint when working outdoors?
Ooh, it takes a little bit of time to find the right spot. I definitely look for a place that is close to a restroom. I like a few creature comforts. So I look for places that are, you know, safe, and places that I can maybe talk to, close to a trailhead that I can talk to somebody that maybe works there, get a little bit of extra history. I love talking to people when I plein air. If you ever see anybody painting outside in plein air, I think like it's a great opportunity to talk to an artist. But I definitely look for places that are a little bit more public, places that maybe I can learn a little bit from somebody that walks by, and you know, accessible places that are on the trail. I think, you know, a few times I've not on a plein air, you know, expedition, but I've been out to take pictures of locations and found pygmy rattlesnakes, and you know, been devoured by ticks and mosquitoes. So I try to find places that are a little bit closer to concrete, and recognizable places. But you know, things that'll never ever change when you do plein air. The sky is always going to change while you're working out there. The tides change. You know, you start at low tide, then the water comes up, then you got to paint a reflection somewhere, and then the tide goes right back down. There was an eclipse one day, and so you know, there's some things that I hope to control, but a lot of things that just change.
Yeah. You depict many local flora and fauna in your pieces. Is there any significance as to why you chose to paint these sites, many of which being specific to Tallahassee and North Florida?
I consider myself a hyper local artist right now. When I was doing earlier works, especially some of the roadside pieces, they expanded more into just general Florida roadside Americana. No matter where I am, I will dive into the history and the ecology. I love kind of hitting up when Waterworks was still around. They had science parlors where they would have scientists come out and speak about the ecology. So I'm really looking for conversations with people. I don't know if you can see, like right now, I bedazzled a ghost orchid so on my shirt. So I'm really looking for things that are aesthetically beautiful, of course, but you know, even non-native species I think are really interesting in the state of Florida. We've got the saw palm that's, you know, very common, but those big Queen Royal palms come from somewhere else, but they're still so iconic for Florida. So that's kind of, it doesn't always have to be local, but maybe it's just like local to my backyard. You know?
And you currently are the Senior Artist Programs Manager and Wildlife Artist at the Thomasville Center for the Arts, where you also collaborate with artists and designers, curating their exhibitions to the public. And you also obtained your BFA from UCF and then your MFA from FSU, where you were an adjunct instructor briefly. How do your experiences from teaching at FSU and your current job influence your own career as an artist?
Yes. Well, it is so hard to juggle it all. I find myself barely treading water, as I think many artists do. You know, having a gallery support and represent my work is a huge privilege, and it's a huge full-time job that you all take on. And then painting is a huge full-time job, and having a steady practice and studio practice. And then I have, you know, this full-time job at the Center for the Arts, and you know, working at FSU. But all of these places, I don't know why I don't paint people, but again, it kind of, maybe it's just what I'm thinking of right now. It really kind of reconnects me with creatives that are interested in the same things. I work close by to an artist that works downstairs from my office, Ron Thompson, and he paints similar themes and thinks similarly in how to construct a painting, looking at form, looking at light, thinking about materials. So, you know, if I'm feeling like, man, I haven't talked art in a while, I haven't talked shop, I can go and connect with these artists that you know, I get to work with. So it's a huge privilege. Being an artist is incredibly lonely because you're working on your own practice by yourself, and it's kind of a wonderful thing to be alone and do it yourself. But I always say we never exist in a vacuum. So collaboration is important, conversation is important, critique is important. So all of these jobs that I have definitely helped me creatively to kind of add that experience. And art school was great because you have that experience built in. But once you're out of art school, and you definitely don't need art school to be a wonderful artist, but I do think it is necessary to build that community and network of people.
And what is your favorite piece you created for Subtropical, Living in a Sinking State, and why?
Ooh, that's a good question. Some of them are really, man, I'm not as sentimental as I thought I would be about my work. So some of them I'm like, I like this small part of the piece. I liked this part of the process, or I enjoyed working on this piece because I was in a really good place in my life, emotionally, physically, environmentally. So sometimes I'll be drawn to a piece just because it was a good piece to get me somewhere else. I really like, there's a piece, I think it's in the bag. I can't remember the title of it because I'm horrible with titles, but it's pink flowers, and it is oil on paper a folded paper mounted on board. And it's a tree at my parents' house. My mother has this beautiful tree. It's a non-native species. I think it actually comes from maybe South America. And we call it a purple orchid. And my mom has fed it compost, and it has just like overgrown so much to the point that it's like a sight. It is a massive hot pink tree in the winter. But there's something kind of really beautiful about that piece, that there's a gradient of warmth that I enjoyed painting and kind of looking through. There's these hot pinks. That pink is my favorite pigment to paint with. I've got every shade of red you could think of. And these patches of blue in the sky that I kind of like think of anytime there's light shining through a painting. It feels like that Italian terrazzo on the floor. So it's kind of like painting abstract little speckles everywhere for light coming in. Overall, that was, I think, probably my favorite piece in the show. It's, I always try not to be too precious with my materials and just kind of go for it. But there was something that clicked as far as color goes, as far as scale goes. It kind of scratched a sentimental itch for me that I had. I'm kind of excited to work on that medium and at that scale and with those colors again. So it was fun. It was, just a fun piece.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it sounds like either ginger or royal pink flora.
Royal pink flora. And that ginger painting is, goodness, I did it years ago. I started it and then recently I finished it. And so that was one of those pieces that I'm like, dragging your heels with. So they're like opposite in my brain. But yeah.
Yeah. If you could describe your art, not just the pieces displayed as Subtropical, what would they be and why?
I always kind of think of my work as they're very humid and acidic. They feel like I hope to capture an atmosphere without, always painting atmospherically within the piece. So they're definitely a snippet of time, a snippet of weather, a snippet of what I'm working with. And there's a little bit of sweetness to them too. So they kind of feel like maybe sour candy. It's really sweet. It's very saccharine. It's very I definitely get some influences from like kitsch iconography and roadside souvenirs and things. So I hope to pick up that really sugary sweetness.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk about your pieces in Subtropical. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Yes, thank you all so much. I am truly honored. I mean, it's an honor to be part of such an amazing collective of artists at Venvi. And I look forward to the next shows and seeing what comes next. So thank you all so much.
Oh, no problem.
Venvi Art Gallery will have Sam McCoy's artworks on display until August 18th, and you can find Sam McCoy's works on our website at www.venviartgallery.com. Also, feel free to learn more about Sam McCoy on our website under the Artist tab, or check out her portfolio at www.sammccoyart.com. Venvi Art Gallery is open Wednesdays through Sundays from 12:30 to 5:30 p.m. Thank you so much for watching.